Good morning and welcome to the latest edition of the Creative Flow Review, where I look back on the things I've posted most recently to my creativity website, where I'm always publishing and designing new projects. Let's go all the way to the earliest ones for this edition. It's a home movie from 1956, me growing up in Southern California with a little of Christmas at the end, and of course all set to music. It's kind of a neat thing to have that memory. Well, that's all that childhood stuff. Pretty neat. Um, Here is something that came from 1972. It's road trip from Los Angeles to New York to see my stepfather's hometown, and we stopped in Arlington and also stopped at the Lincoln Memorial. In 1971, they'd given me my first 35 millimeter camera, just like my stepdad had, and he took slides, so I took slides, and I got a slide of the cemetery with all the headstones and a slide of the memorial. But neither one was much. But of course, it's the time of the Vietnam War, so I was thinking in terms of anti war statements and getting a little social consciousness. So I took the two slides and I used a paper punch to cut a hole in the slide of the headstones and sandwich the two together into the same holder so that when you projected them, or later when I transferred it to digital, you could see Lincoln, Civil War, with the people standing next to his memorial, and then all the people in Arlington who were originally the soldiers from the Civil War. Big statement, yeah, sure. But I was only 18 at the time, so got to give me a chance to grow. Now, this is Catunia. This is the second of my Catunia pictures. I had it in my head to try and do a combination between a hybrid of a petunia and a kitten. And the first one came out that I posted very, very well. This one came out pretty darn good. And there's a couple more, but you can see them all, of course, on Creative Flow. By the way, Creative Flow is on Patreon. It costs you $1 a month to see all this stuff. And I publish probably about 50, 60, 100 things a month. So it's really worth it. You can jump out at any time. And also, it's a 7-day free trial. Anyway, link down below in the description. Now, StoryMind and me. Okay, back in the 1990s, see, we're moving up in time, 20 years at a shot. I co-created a whole new theory of story structure called Dramatica, along with my partner Chris Huntley. And we created it in a model of software of how this structure worked in stories, got a patent on it, and more than 100,000 people around the world have used it, including Academy Award winners, Emmy winners, best-selling New York Times authors, and even one Pulitzer Prize winner that I know of. He was very enamored of it before. He's no longer with us now, but back in the early days. Anyway, I wrote a trilogy of books, not about the theory, but about my experience with the theory, how it affected my life. Kind of like when Crick and Watson Crick wrote that book about how they went about finding it and what it meant to them. So I'm serializing that here. You can buy the whole book if you want in the store here on my Patreon page. An anti-biography. Again, I mix up all the theory stuff with my personal stuff and my art. A proud moment. My grandfather built the very first prototype of a design that was invented by his boss for kind of a whirligig that finishes the top of cement when you're pouring cement. And sure enough, I looked it up, and his boss invented it, and he built the very first one ever in the world. So it's kind of a proud moment. He was proud of it when he told me about it, and I verified. Another chapter from the StoryMind and me. Now, here's a video, again, an obscure video on my YouTube channel that is of sandbars. And we're trying to cross these sandbars. I'm going to put the sound down a little. All the way across the Willamette River in Salem when we lived there back in the early or late 2000s. Anyway, Teresa is trying to find her way across this overflowing Willamette River to see how far out she can get into the middle of the river on the bars. And then during the course of the video, I follow her out. And we both get our feet wet, but we get right out into the middle. Pretty interesting if you like that sort of thing. Now this one's I call the Scary Night. These are actually the outtakes. I had one that I posted earlier that came out really well. It's AI art, and then I have to keep changing the prompts to see what kind of a image I can get. But it's what if, when Van Gogh was painting The Starry Night, a black hole appeared, and maybe it was moving towards Earth. Well, that's what this looks like. Anyway, you can enjoy all of them, and of course, download them if you want, all for that $1 a month. Anyway, here's another nameless riff. Now, let me just hit you with this just a little bit here and see if I can make it come up. Okay, you hear that? Anyway, I've written over 500 little riffs and tunes and melodies and full-blown songs, some of which I've produced at studio quality over the last 5 decades. In the 1970s, I started keeping a composer's sketchbook, which I keep till today, and this one is just a little riff. But the composer's sketchbook, as I said, has 500 entries, all been digital, made digital, and you get to hear them all one every few days of the music I've created. Another shot that came from our trip cross country. This was in New York City on that same trip, and I did a handheld shot out the window, and of course the cars bouncing around, and as a result, all the street lights ended up making it look like they were electric arcs or some kind of big neon stream. So I called it Electric Avenue. Sometimes the best photography is not what you shoot, but what you decide to edit. Now here's snippet number 30. I've got over 2,000 of these in a series of books called Snippets and Bits, and each one has hundreds and hundreds of these little phrases I've come up with over all these decades, and some of them are brilliant, and some of them are snarky, and some of them are little truisms like Benjamin Franklin did. I read his autobiography when I was 12 and just totally inspired me. This one is, "We've been mourning the loss of our angst." Well, that's a little ironic or contradictory, but each one has a little something to say, sometimes funny, sometimes sad. Now, I was into the Marx Brothers when I was in my teenage years, and I still think they're absolutely fabulous. And so I came across this the other day. Someone had posted a compilation of some of Harpo's best moments. He was just fantastic the more you read about him. And so you can look at those as well. Let's see if we can take a quick look at these. And hello, Harpo, come in. All right.
Now I want you to meet the sweetest little thing in the whole wide world.
Okay, we're going to leave it there, but anyway, it's like 6 minutes of wonderful stuff. Now, this is a photograph of the back of my house from the backyard that I grew up during my teenage years until I got married. And again, I was into trick photography, even won an honorable mention in the Kodak Teenage Movie Awards and for a film I'd created. And this was part of the film. It was called Here Comes the Sun, named after the Beatles song, because I had a lot of fast motion sunsets in it. Time-lapse, which I had to do by hand, frame at a time with a cable because you didn't have video in those days. Anyway, I cut out a shot of my house, and then I held it up against the blue sky, and then I had a friend of mine come walking towards it, and eventually this big giant comes over and reaches over the house, and his fingers go over the top of the house, which is really cool. But anyway, here's all about the technique of matte paintings and foreground miniatures and everything, and some of the people to look into if you're interested in that's the only way you could do it in those days. Finally, we get onto the third book. I just finished up the second one about the story mind in me. This is mental relativity in me, and it really gets into some, I'll show you a little more. What the heck, you got the time. It gets into some interesting stuff about the mind and biology and physics and math models and all kinds of material. So as it says here, a quote, every book of the 3 books comes up with a quote. This is a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma, but perhaps there is a key. Winston Churchill said that just at the beginning of the war. In any event, other things I do is working with AI to create images in the style of famous painters. Hieronymus Bosch, if you've never heard of him, I think he was a 16th century Dutch painter. He did the one, The Garden of Earthly Delights, where it shows that guy who's like half cut in half in hell. He's looking over his shoulder and people are crawling inside. And, well, you could get the idea from this. I thought, what if Hieronymus Bosch painted cats? So I ended up with 3 versions, and here's the best one of the ones that I put up front. You can see the other 2 on here as well. For just $1 a month. Remember, Patreon. At the end, I'll have a little clicking point, I hope, where you can just click on the Patreon logo and go right to my site, but it's in the description. 2 more, riffs, mindless riffs. And then there's a second one here. can hear it's on cassette back in the 1970s. Anyway, yeah, guitar, piano, keyboard. I've even played a little trumpet, drums, trombone, whatever I can. Neon Revolution, another trick shot here. That was shot in 1971 on another road trip we took to the middle of the country and back. And here in Estes Park, Colorado, it was on July 4th. And so we went out to the lake to see the fireworks show, and I shot 3 slides that I decided to sandwich together. One of them had the guys down below, which were the looked like little soldiers. That was the lights on the other side of the lake with a handheld shot, and these fireworks here. And then I had this big old swirly gig thing that I did, kind of an explosion. And then I had this. We had an American flag on our front porch that stuck out on a pole from the post, and I took a shot of that. And when you sandwich all 3 together on slides, wherever it's brightest, things show through. So I ended up being able to create this thing called Neon Revolution in honor of the 4th of July. Kind of a patriot. I'm a liberal. I'm an uber patriot and love all the lore. Anyway, so you have that. You'll get those things too. This is the next book, Mental Relativity Me, Chapter 1, the first full chapter. And in this one, you get all kinds of stuff as I roll through here. Lots of description about the science behind the narrative structure, and a portion of our original booklet on the theory of mental relativity that we published before we even published anything about our story theory, which we're still most famous for. Then here's Shut Up So We Can Hear the Music. I'm not going to play this one. It's just me too close to the mic humming the tune to a really cool background. Well, I will play a little for you. I'll play the background. Here we go. And right after that, I start going, ooh, and totally drowning out. That sounds a little bit like Paul Williams' Rainbow Connection from the Muppet movie. But Muppet movie, of course, was like 15 years after this, but I don't think he stole it. Anyway, it's also the same kind of interesting stuff. I did about 24 pictures of cat nebulae, and I put a bunch of them up at a time, like 4 at a time. But they're just interesting. What if there was a nebula that looked like a cat for one reason or another? Again, working with AI to try and get the best image. That's what's in Creative Flow for this last few days only. That's only 4 days. But you get more than that. I've posted 700 things to this website so far, and you can see the different collections that I have of the stuff that I've done. The event is my science fiction thriller series. I've got 100 episodes of that written so far. Pretty cool. Poems, snippets and bits I told about. Funny things, my creative journey, some of my earliest work in high school, doodles, life and past lives, and then Dramatica. For those of you who are into the story theory, here it is. You get it all the way down. And also writing tips and other things that will help you create your story if you're more into productivity than theory. Anyway, final point. You can just click, if I'm able to do this, on the little icon that says bonus content, Patreon, and you will come right to the page where you can sign up for just $1 a month, quit anytime, 7-day free trial, and you can see the fullness of everything that's happening here that you've only seen in brief so far. And otherwise, the link for Patreon for my webpage, Creative Flow, is down in the description below. So that's it for this session, and when I post a few more things, I'll come up with another update for Creative Flow. See you then.